I killed my father's legacy with a single signature, but only after I learned he'd spent 40 years rotting in shame for a crime that wasn't his. The check in his hands that night, yellowed and signed, a ghost from 1985, proved it all, and I was the fool who'd cashed it in blood. My name is Charlotte Hayes, and this is how I burned down the empire my uncle built on my dad's broken back, even if it meant torching my own soul in the flames. It started on a muggy August evening in Brooklyn, the kind where the air hangs heavy with the ghosts of old grudges and the distant wail of an A train rattling like a bad conscience. Dad had passed 3 months earlier, quietly in his sleep, the way a man does when he's carried too many secrets for too long. Prostate cancer, the doctors said, but I knew better. It was the weight of unspoken betrayals that finally crushed him. At 58, he looked 80 when they lowered him into that plot in Greenwood Cemetery, his face etched with lines that whispered of deals gone sour and promises pissed away. I was clearing out his cramped 2-bedroom in Bay Ridge, the one he'd clung to like a life raft after Mom bailed in '92. Cardboard boxes everywhere, labeled in his neat block letters. Tools, old bills, photos, do not open. I was knee-deep in the detritus of a life unlived when I cracked open his favorite book, a dog-eared copy of The Great Gatsby that he'd thumbed through so many times the spine was held together by sheer willpower. Dad loved Fitzgerald, said it reminded him of the American dream we were all chasing, only to watch it slip through our fingers like cheap bourbon. The check fluttered out like a bad omen, landing face up on the scuffed hardwood. I picked it up, expecting some forgotten utility bill, but the amount hit me like a gut punch. $250,000. Made out to Elliott Hayes Enterprises from Hudson River Investments, dated October 15, 1985. And signed, uncashed, the ink on the payee line smudged but legible. Dad's company name, the one he'd founded fresh out of Vietnam, grinding away in that shoebox office on Wall Street, peddling real estate deals to fat cats who summered in the Hamptons. My hands shook as I turned it over. On the back, in Dad's cramped script, for the fire, keep buried. The fire. Jesus Christ, the fire. It all came rushing back. The headlines from when I was 8, screaming, "Arson scandal rocks Manhattan. Developer Elliott Hayes faces charges." Dad's face plastered everywhere, gaunt and hollow-eyed, accused of torching his own warehouse in Red Hook to collect insurance on a bad investment. He'd lost everything. The business, the house in Park Slope, our family shot at the brass ring. Pleaded guilty to lesser charges, did 18 months upstate, came home a shell. Collateral damage, he'd mutter when I'd ask, ruffling my hair like it was just a scraped knee. But this check? It was restitution, hush money, whatever you call it when a snake sheds its skin and leaves you holding the bag. Hudson River Investments, that was Uncle Victor's outfit. Dad's older brother, the golden boy who'd swooped in after the war, married Aunt Lorraine, and built an empire on the bones of family favors. Victor Hayes, the guy who showed up at holidays with caviar and convertibles, always slapping Dad on the back like they were equals, when everyone knew Victor was the shark and Dad the chum. I sat there on the floor, the check clutched in my fist, as the pieces clicked like a .38 revolver. Dad hadn't started that fire. Victor had. And this check was proof. Payment to shut Dad up, to take the fall. 40 years of silence, of Dad scraping by as a night watchman at the very ports he'd once owned, all while Victor climbed to the penthouse, rubbing elbows with senators and real estate moguls. The betrayal hit deeper than bone. It was marrow deep, a poison that explained every hollow laugh, every early grave. I didn't cry. Not then. I folded the check into my wallet, next to my Metro card, and a crumpled receipt from the bodega. Rage is a cold thing, the kind that settles in your chest like winter fog off the East River. By midnight, I was on the F train to Midtown, the city lights blurring into streaks of neon judgment. Victor's office loomed in a glass tower on 6th Avenue, all chrome and arrogance, the kind of building that screamed, "I own you," to the ants scurrying below. Security buzzed me up. Charlotte Hayes, family. I lied smoothly, flashing Dad's old ID like it was a backstage pass. Victor's assistant, a Botoxed blonde named Kendra, tried to block me, but I was through the double doors before she could hit the intercom. There he was, my uncle, 65 and still sharp as a switchblade, leaning back in a leather throne that probably cost more than Dad's lifetime earnings. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline, Manhattan's jagged teeth biting the night. "Charlie," he beamed, that salesman grin splitting his face like a crack in fine china. "What a surprise. Bourbon? It's the good stuff, Pappy Van Winkle." I didn't sit. "You remember the warehouse fire, Uncle Vic?" Red Hook, 85. His eyes flickered just a microsecond, but I caught it, the lizard brain kicking in. "Of course, kiddo. Your old man. Tough break. Why bring it up now?" I slapped the check down on his desk, the slap echoing like a gavel. "Because this says you torched it. And Dad ate the blame to protect your sorry ass." The room went tomb silent, save for the hum of the HVAC. Victor's face cycled through denial, then calculation, like a poker player reading a bad hand. He picked up the check, held it to the light, then laughed. A wet, ugly bark. "Jesus, Elliot kept this? Sentimental fool." "Look, Charlie, it wasn't like that. The market was tanking, loans piling up. I borrowed the idea from a contact. Dad knew the risks. He volunteered." "Volunteered?" My voice cracked the air. "He did 18 months, lost everything. We lived on ramen while you bought yachts." Victor's mask slipped, just enough. "Family sticks together, right? He got a cut, off the books. Lived like a king in that hovel because he chose pride over cash." Liar. But doubt wormed in, a sliver of ice. Dad had always been stubborn, the straight-arrow vet who turned down shady deals. Had he really signed on for this? Victor leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Tell you what, nostalgia's got you riled. How about we make it right? 10% of my portfolio, call it inheritance. But you burn that check, and we forget this ever happened." I snatched it back, the paper crisp against my palm. Too late for forgetting. I turned on my heel, the door slamming behind me like a period on a death sentence. Back in Bay Ridge, the apartment felt smaller, suffocating. I pored over Dad's things that night, unearthing letters from Victor, promises of big things coming, IOUs never paid. A photo of the two brothers, arms slung around each other outside the warehouse, grins wide as the Hudson. Lies, all of it. By dawn, I decided, revenge wasn't a word, it was a blueprint. Victor had built his life on Dad's ruin. I'd dismantle it brick by crooked brick. First, the low-hanging fruit. Victor's empire wasn't just real estate. It was a web of shell companies, tax dodges, and backroom handshakes that reeked of the 80s excess. I started small, anonymous tips to the IRS from a burner phone, flagging discrepancies in Hudson River's filings. Nothing dramatic, just enough to trigger an audit, the kind that turns executives' colons to water. Weeks blurred into a haze of caffeine and cat videos to stay sane. I kept my day job at the ad agency in Flatiron, churning out copy for luxury condos while plotting the fall of the man who'd bought them. Victor called once, voice oily. "Heard you're digging, Charlie. Drop it. For family." I hung up, blocked the number. The audit hit like a summer squall. News trickled out, HUD probing Victor's waterfront deals, whispers of kickbacks from city councilmen. His stock dipped, partners ghosted. I watched from afar, nursing Estella at a dive bar in Williamsburg, the TV flickering with talking heads debating corruption in the Big Apple. Schadenfreude tasted like victory, sharp and sweet. But Victor was no fool. He flipped the script faster than a Times Square hustler. A week later, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Charlotte Hayes? This is Detective Ruiz, NYPD Fraud Squad. We need to talk about your father's arson conviction." My stomach dropped. They met me in a coffee shop off Atlantic Avenue, Ruiz a stocky Latina with eyes like polished obsidian. "Your tip on Victor Hayes?" It opened a can of worms. Turns out, Elliot Hayes's plea deal was coerced. Evidence tampered. We're reopening the case. Relief warred with terror. "Dad's innocent?" She nodded, sliding a file across the Formica. "Preliminary forensics say the accelerant wasn't standard, military grade, Traces from Vietnam surplus. Your uncle had access. Served in country too. I flipped through. Affidavits from old warehouse workers, one swearing Victor was there the night before, smelling like gasoline and bad ideas. Dad's confession? Coerced, for a psych eval buried in state archives. The betrayal deepened, a chasm. Victor hadn't just framed him. He'd weaponized brotherhood, dangled the check as a gag, uncashable, without admitting guilt. Ruiz leaned in. We need your testimony. Family angle sells it to the DA. I hesitated. Testifying meant dragging Dad's name through the mud again, airing our poverty, the nights he cried in the kitchen. But revenge whispered louder. I'm in. The leak was deliberate, I knew. Victor, cornered, lashing out. He called that night, voice of velvet blade. You think you're avenging him? Elliot was weak, always was. I saved us both. That fire cleared the board for Hudson River. Without it, we'd both be flipping burgers. You torched lives, Vic. Not buildings. He chuckled, dark as the subway tunnels. And you're the saint? Dig deeper, niece. Ask why Elliot never cashed the check. Pride? Or shame? The line went dead. Sleep evaded me. Dad's book mocking from the nightstand. Why hadn't he fought? The question festered. A bad tooth. Victor's words slithered into my dreams, twisting like smoke from that long-ago blaze. By morning, I was back in Dad's apartment, tearing through the Gatsby again, as if the pages held more than faded prose and regret. Tucked in the chapter on the Valley of Ashes, fitting, that, was a Polaroid, creased and yellowed. Dad and Victor, younger, arms around a third man, all grins under a welcome home banner at JFK. The third guy? Harlan Crow, Victor's old war buddy, the contact he'd mentioned. Harlan, who'd vanished after the scandal, rumored to be sipping Mai Tais in Aruba on laundered cash. I fired up my laptop, fingers flying over freelance databases I'd sweet-talked access to from my agency days. Harlan Crow, last known address, a P.O. box in Miami. Whispers of offshore accounts tied to Hudson River. Victor's flip, accusing Dad of complicity, was a feint, buying time to bury loose ends. But I was done playing defense. The plan crystallized over Takeout Lo Mein, exposed not just the fire, but the rot beneath. Victor's current crown jewel was the Brooklyn Navy Yard redevelopment, a billion-dollar boondoggle of luxury lofts and affordable units that were anything but. Permits greased, environmental reports fudged. If I could tie it back to the '85 arson, show a pattern of fraud, I'd topple him like a Jenga tower in a stiff breeze. First, Harlan. I booked a red-eye to Miami, the kind of flight where the guy next to you smells like regret and cheap cologne. South Beach hit me like a fever dream, pastel Art Deco facades hiding the grind of hustlers and retirees chasing yesterday's glory. Harlan's residence was a slipshod condo in Little Havana, the kind with bars on the windows and roaches hosting rent parties. He answered the door in a wife-beater stained with Cuban coffee, eyes bloodshot from whatever chased the ghosts away. Hayes. Shit, thought you were dead. Victor's the one burying bodies, Harlan. Not mine. We sat on his balcony, overlooking a parking lot, the humid air thick with salsa from the street below. He lit a Camel, exhaled a dragon's breath. What do you want, girl? Closure? Vic's a shark, always was. Nom turned to mean booby traps, napalm. Me? I just followed. The fire. I pressed, voice low. You supplied the juice. He stubbed the cig, eyes distant. Yeah. Victor's play, insurance scam to float a bad loan. Elliot found out, threatened to rat. Vic offered the deal. Take the fall, get 20% of the payout off books. Elliot refused. So Vic adjusted. Planted the check, as insurance. Sign it, brother, or we all burn. Elliot signed the plea instead. Kept the check to remember why he hated us. My world tilted. Dad hadn't volunteered. He'd been cornered, brother against brother in a cage match of greed. Why not fight? Harlan shrugged, a sad sack of what-ifs. Bride. And you, little Charlie, 8 years old. Didn't want you seeing Daddy in cuffs on the news. Tears burned, unshed. I slid him my card. Testify. DA's building a case. Make it right. He pocketed it noncommittal. Vic finds out I'm gator bait. Back in New York, the city pulsed with indifferent energy, horns blaring on the BQE, vendors hawking knockoff Rolexes like salvation. Ruiz met me at a precinct coffee machine that spat sludge. Good trip? We got warrants on Victor's emails. He's lawyering up, but it's sloppy, panic mode. The evidence piled. Emails from 85 digitized from a forgotten server. Victor to Harlan. Handle the brother problem. Quiet. Modern stuff too. Bribes to the Navy Yard zoning board. Funneled through a charity Dad had once chaired. Victor's flips continued. He went public, a tearful op-ed in the Post. Family betrayal. Niece's vendetta endangers jobs. Portraying me as the gold-digging harpy, Dad as the arsonist who got what he deserved. The backlash stung. Trolls on my LinkedIn. Agency whispers about distractions. Aunt Lorraine called, voice quivering. He's your blood, Charlotte. This destroys us all. Blood? Victor had spilled Dad's metaphorical blood without a blink. I doubled down. Anonymous posts on development forums, leaking permit docs. Protesters gathered at the yard site. Community folks I'd quietly funded via GoFundMe, chanting, "No more Hayes lies." The press ate it up, CNN running segments on the arson heir's reckoning. Victor countered viciously. One night, my mailbox held a manila envelope, no return, photos of me at Harlan's, time-stamped. A note in Victor's script. Keep digging, and the grave gets deeper. Fear coiled, but rage uncoiled it. I installed cameras, carried mace, turned my apartment into a bunker. The flip came at Thanksgiving, of all times. Family dinner at Victor's spread in the village. Turkey and tension. Lorraine's forced smiles. He pulled me aside in the study, decanter in hand. Truce, Charlie? You're winning the war, but losing the peace. Elliot wouldn't want this. I laughed, bitter. Dad wanted justice. The kind you denied him. His eyes softened or feigned it. I loved him. We were kids scraping in Queens. The fire. It was survival. Sign this. He slid over papers, a settlement, $5 million to the family trust, my name on the board. Partners. Like brothers should be. The offer hung, tempting as sin. Money to fix the roof, pay off student loans, maybe even therapy for the whole Dad left. But the check in my pocket burned hotter. Partners? You'd flip again. He sighed, theatrical. Or, I go nuclear. Those photos? Just the start. Elliot's real secret. He knew about the bribes back then. Looked the other way for a cut. Complicit kiddo. Liar. Or was he? Doubt gnawed, Harlan's words echoing. I pocketed the papers. See you in court. December brought snow and subpoenas. The DA's office buzzed like a hive, Ruiz coordinating with feds on RICO charges. Victor's empire cracked, investors fleeing, the Navy Yard project stalled by injunctions. I testified first, voice steady under fluorescence. The check, the letters, Dad's hollow years. Jurors leaned in, faces a mix of sympathy and skepticism. Harlan showed, surprisingly. His affidavit sealed it. Victor lit the match. Elliot carried the torch alone. Victor's turn was a circus, silver-haired fox in a Brioni suit, tearfully admitting lapses in judgment, but pinning the fire on rogue elements. Flipping blame like hotcakes. The verdict loomed, a guillotine blade. But Victor wasn't done scheming. Christmas Eve, my buzzer rang. A courier with a box. Inside, Dad's Gatsby, check gone, replaced by a new one, $250,000, signed. Note. For the fire's end. Family first. I burned it in the sink, the flames dancing like accusations. Was this absolution? Or another chain? New Year's Eve dawned crisp and cruel, the city hung over from fireworks and false starts. The trial's climax hit like a nor'easter. Opening arguments in the federal courthouse on Foley Square, where the ghosts of Tammany Hall still whispered deals in the marble halls. I sat in the gallery, heart hammering against my ribs, As Ruiz laid out the timeline, the 85 fire as ground zero for Victor's Ponzi of deceit, the Navy Yard as the glittering finale. Victor took the stand mid-January, a masterclass in deflection. "My brother was my hero," he intoned, dabbing artful tears. But ambition blinded us both. Elliot pushed for the expansion. I enabled. The check? A gesture of goodwill he refused, out of stubborn honor. Flipping the narrative, Dad as co-conspirator, the fall his own damn fault. Jurors shifted, some nodding. The American sucker's love for the bootstraps myth. I seethed, but the prosecution countered with Harlan's video depo, his gravel voice cracking. Elliot begged Victor to call it off. Got the plea shoved down his throat instead. Exhibits flew. The original check, forensics linking the accelerant to Victor's Army surplus contacts. The courtroom thickened with tension, reporters scribbling like fiends. Outside, the controversy brewed. Protests swelled, Victor's backers decrying witch hunt, while tenant advocates hailed me as avenger. Pundits split. Fox called it family feud gone feral, MSNBC, justice for the little guy. I became a lightning rod, doxed on 4chan, flooded with emails, half praise, half venom. Blood money whore. Hero's daughter. No one clean, everyone stained. The flip that gutted me came from Aunt Lorraine, of all people. She cornered me in the ladies after a recess, perfume cloying as regret. Charlie, stop this. Victor's sick, prostate, like Elliot. Irony, huh? Her eyes red-rimmed. He confessed to me years ago. The fire was for us, for the baby we lost. Insurance to start over. Elliot knew, forgave. That check. He wrote it himself, backdated, to protect Victor from Harlan's blackmail. The world inverted. Dad, the architect? No, Lorraine spun it, but cracks showed. Her trembling hands, the way she avoided my gaze. Victor's ploy, using frailty as shield. But doubt festered. Had Dad shielded more than I knew? That night, alone in my sublet, the Bay Ridge place sold to pay bills, I pored over Dad's last journal, unearthed from a trunk. Entries from 84. Vixen deep. Warehouse leverage. Can't let him drown us all. Then, post-fire. Sign the plea. Checks my ace. Never cash. Just remember. No complicity, just sacrifice. For family, the curse of it. The climax erupted on a sleet-lashed afternoon, closing arguments of verbal cage fight. DA painted Victor as Icarus, wings melted by greed. Defense. Tragic brothers, bound by love's dark side. Jury deliberated 3 days, the city holding breath. I paced Central Park, snow muffling the chaos, when Ruiz called. Hung jury. 8-4 for conviction, but 2 holdouts, Victor's plants, maybe. Mistrial. Rage boiled over. I stormed Victor's holding cell that evening, glass between us like judgment. You win again? He looked diminished, jowls sagging.
No winners, Charlie.
Drop the retrial. Take the deal, board seat, legacy intact. And Dad's. Ghosts don't vote. His smile, serpentine. Or fight me in round 2. I'll bury you both. The decision clawed at me, controversial as a divided nation. Retrial meant years, draining the trust dry, exposing more family filth, Lorraine's grief, Harlan's sins. Or settle, cash the new check, join the empire, twist it from within. Revenge diluted, but alive. No one right. Victor's monster born of desperation. Dad's silence a noble poison. My fury a mirror of theirs. Twist hit like vertigo. A juror note slipped to Ruiz. Hold out 2 confessed bribery by Victor's lawyer. Retrial greenlit, but Harlan vanished. Miami condo empty. A suicide note fake on the table. Truth burns. Victor's final flip? Or Dad's hidden play? Had he stashed evidence pointing to Harlan as the real torch? I chose the blaze. February 14th, Valentine's for the damned, I testified again, unleashing the journal. Dad's words, raw as open wounds. Elliot Hayes was no saint, I admitted, but he carried our sins so we could chase the dream. Jurors wept. Victor crumbled. Verdict: guilty on all counts: arson, facilitation, fraud, conspiracy. 20 years, no parole. The courtroom erupted, cheers and sobs. Victor's glare as they cuffed him. You killed him twice, niece. Outside, flashbulbs blinded. I cashed the original check that week, $250K. Interest compounded to $500,000, donated half to arson victim funds, kept the rest for a trust. Hayes redemption. Aunt Lorraine faded to Florida, silent. Harlan, found in Key West spilling more beans for immunity. Ending?
Nota y dibao.
I sit in Dad's old spot by the window. Gatsby open. The Valley of Ashes now a condo with my name on the deed, reclaimed from the yard deal. Victory tastes like ash. Victor rots, but the empire endures, twisted by my hand. Did I avenge or become him? Readers, you decide. Justice or just another hustle in the city that never sleeps? Was Dad's secret mercy or madness? The check, uncashed, a final flip. Proof he loved enough to let go. Or chain me to the wheel. 40 years buried. Now it's out, sparking fires in minds like mine. In America, revenge isn't sweet. It's the bitter dregs we all sip, arguing over the glass.